Who's your captain?
Matt Holland.
Okay, fine.
Obviously, who those?
You're going to tell Sam Morsey he's not the captain, are you?
No, I'm not. I'll get Tony Mowbray to do it.
With plenty of downtime here at Blue Monday HQ during the international break, our pod team started to wonder just how good is the team of 23-24, even at this early stage. And if we were forced to name a combined 11 with the excellent team of 99-2000, what would it look like? Helping me debate this, everyone else, Seb, has left us to it. Seb Brown, are you as worried as I am recording this?
I think we need to make it clear this is just a bit of fun. It's just a hypothetical scenario. And yeah, there's no research for me to do this week, so I have to fill in my my working week somehow. So this is simply our opinions and a little bit of fun. Opinions can't be wrong. And yeah, just for everyone to enjoy it. I'm sure if we asked a million different people this question, we get a million different answers. So yeah, it's a bit of fun, bit of enjoyment to fill the international break, comparing the side that we obviously, you know, our kind of best years as Town fans. Yeah, exactly. Versus the current very exciting side. Yeah,
so it wouldn't be a fun debate, Seb, without some rules. So we are setting. Do you want to set the rules out because you love the rules?
I don't enjoy the rules, but I will abide by them because you said that I'd never podcast again if I didn't. So the rules are you have to have 6 from each era, including the manager. So 6 from the 99-2000 squad and 6 from the 2023-2024 squad. And the formation, I've gone a bit rogue with the formation. So you had to choose either a 4-2-3-1 a la Kieran McKenna 2023, or you had to choose a 3-5-2 a la George Burley at 99-2000. I went for a different formation to the manager I chose, but those were the 2 rules which will explain some of our choices as we chat through our selections.
So we hope you'll find this interesting and it prompts some debate in the comments. So do get them in there. Please be respectful, as we said. We are just doing this for a bit of a laugh. But hopefully some interesting insights as the 99-2000 team relates to this 23-24 team. Obviously, another big caveat is we know that the season has only just begun. It's 11 games in or whatever it is. So we know that this team has not achieved what the 99-2000 team has done yet. But Seb, if you were to compare the records on the day that we record, so the 11th of October, ITFC in present day are second, having played 11 and won 9 of those 11 games. Rewind back to 1999 and Town were fifth, having only played 9 games, but only won 5 of them. And so interesting to see that kind of extrapolated over the course of that season, where obviously a 46-game season, we ended up with 87 points, 17 clean sheets in that time as well. So clearly that's the target. But at the moment, Seb, we're kind of projected, if you extrapolate as things are, to 117 points and 105 goals. I just kind of mutter that because clearly that's not what we're going to end up with. But it's very different circumstances, isn't it? Does that surprise you, the 99-2000 team? Maybe not as... I remember starting really well. We beat Forest, didn't we?
We started the season amazingly. We beat Forest, we beat Swindon, we beat Bolton, and then, we kind of won, I think, 5, even 2-0 up at Sheffield United and finished 2-2, I think, in about the 4th or 5th game of the season. And there was a 1-0 defeat at home to Birmingham really early, wasn't there? Stan Lazaridis, I think, dived for a penalty. Dived for a penalty, and they won that one. And I think that's probably around the time we're probably comparing the 2 eras, I assume, because that season we started like an absolute train, and we did drop off a little bit, which saw us go out and make a couple of kind of reinforcement signings. Gary Croft comes in probably roughly this time of year with the Man City game pre-transfer window rules. So started like an absolute train that year, whereas this year's just been remarkably consistent. We know all about the Leeds game and the Huddersfield games. Apart from that, it's been totally imperious. So interesting. When you said 5th, I was surprised. I thought we'd have been probably 3rd. I didn't expect it to be top, but I thought maybe 3rd or 4th. 5th does seem a bit low.
Because of the games, other teams have played 10 games, and there was a little, I don't know, I guess maybe League Cup might have been a factor at that point. I'm not too sure.
They were 2-legged back then, weren't they, as well, I think. So that's an extra kind of...
Perhaps that was a factor. But so what we'll do is there is no kind of judgment on the players' peak point when they arrive in our teams. It is the best team from the players we've got there. We're kind of thinking of them in their 99-2000 guys, but where it's obviously the 99-2000 players. So 6 from each, as Seb said. So let's start with the defence. We start with you, Seb. Do you want to go first? Because mine's going to trigger a few people. We're early warning, trigger warning. We'll start with you, shall we, with your defence. I'll put it up on the screen now. Talk us through it.
So I've gone for like I said, the three at the back system. Richard Wright for me has to be the goalkeeper. You said a minute ago, was it 17, 18 clean sheets that season? Only 22, I think he was 21, 22 at the time. He was knocking on the England door around that kind of era, made a load of England under 21 appearances, and he finally gets into the full England squad at the end of the season after Wembley, and has a horrible debut away at Malta. I think he gives away a penalty. But considering how highly rated he was, how young he was, an absolute top draw keeper, and I love what Flaggy can do with starting the play. Walton, we've not really seen this year in the Championship, so hard to gauge him, although he's got previous Championship experience. But for me, I'll be honest, that was a no-brainer. As soon as I kind of sat down, it was always going to be Richard Wright in goal for me.
Yep. Talk to us about the back three.
Back three. So I've gone Luke Wolfenden, who in a George Burley kind of side would fit in lovely. I think, it's basically Wolfenden versus McGreal for this spot for me. And I went for Wolfenden because he's moved up to the Championship effortlessly. He looks so good, composed, brilliant at bringing the ball out. I can imagine Richard Wright just knocking the ball to him and him sort of starting attacks from the back. I also need a bit of pace in my back line because also I've got Tony Mowbray in the middle, the organiser, the stalwart, Wembley goal, obviously. We must remember that 1999-2000 season, he basically retired. I think they kept his registration on and gave him a squad number, but he wasn't featuring. It was McGreal.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was McGreal, Venus, and Thetis, who I think were the opening kind of players and started that season. And Mowbray after, Charlton 4-2, Huddersfield away 3-1, I think. He kind of comes back into the side and gets us back up and running again. So I had to put Mowbray in for the leadership. We speak about the 99-2000 season having a whole host of leaders. So I wanted his organisational skills and his voice alongside Wolfenden at the back. And then Mark Venus, the left-sided centre-back, very underrated with the ball at his feet. We remember the lovely knock down the line for Naylor in the playoff final in the build-up to the third goal, Stewart's header. So really good with the ball at his feet. So I've got two ball-playing defenders either side of kind of an organiser, and Venus obviously will add those set-piece threats with free kicks. We all remember the one against Watford the year before, 99-2000, and we all remember the set pieces he was capable of delivering. So a solid back three, but I needed that little bit of pace of Wolfenden.
Yeah, and on either side of them, you've got our current, I guess Wes Burns notionally out of position there, perhaps at right wing back, but Leif Davis, out at left wing back. No surprises there, really.
Yeah, no, I've gone for kind of an early Kieran McKenna formation where Burns was playing ever so slightly deeper. I need the pace on the wings. It was harsh on Jamie Clapham. I thought, a year later he's knocking on the England squad, but we have to base this on 99-2000, and I have to abide by the 6 and 6 rule. So Leif Davis is in there for me. 5 assists already this season is phenomenal. He's already a third of the way to last year's total after 11 games. And Wes Burns, the right wing back / right back role in 99-2000 was kind of a bit hit and miss, wasn't it? We had Wilness playing quite a lot of games. Gary Croft comes in and drops out, and Wilness then comes back in. Mickey Stockwell filled in there a few times as well. So I don't think it's weird of me to say that's probably the weak link of that side. So looking at it, I just looked at Burns, big game player, adds pace on the wing, always good for a goal in a moment when you need him to. I thought it was a no-brainer to put him.
Yep, should we have a look at mine? I don't
go for it.
Not drastically different, and it's not particularly controversial at this stage. I'm going for a flat back four. Harry Clark may be the surprising name there. I've got Leif Davis, I've got Mark Venus, and Luke Wolfenden as well. Richard Wright. I remember sitting in Churchman's back in the day, 99-2000, and I used to love when Richard Wright was the king of the S-housery back then. Whenever we were 1-0 up in the second half and kicking towards the north stand, and the ball went out of play into the south stand crowd, he always used to tell people to throw the ball miles away from him, or he used to kick it and dribble it around the back of the net to waste time. He wouldn't be able to get away with it now, but I remember those days. And you're right, I think probably one of the best keepers in our club's history, up there with maybe Paul Cooper. Well, probably Paul Cooper. We've been there before and triggered a few people with Paul Cooper, but Richard Wright for me, definitely probably the top keeper in our time watching. And yeah, over on the right, I've gone for Harry Clark, purely because of who I want to play beyond Harry Clark, and I think there's a good pairing there. Brandon Williams obviously had an amazing couple of matches of late, and maybe in a few months' time, maybe Brandon Williams gets that spot off him, and in the next few weeks, maybe it will be Brandon Williams' spot to lose as well. But right now, I'm kind of basing it on what I know from Harry Clark's end of last season, the energy, the pace. there's a Thunder B in there if we need it as well, but it's just a partnership that I want to do down that right-hand side. But otherwise, nothing particularly controversial there. I think maybe Mark Venus might step out like Cameron Burgess does, but he's got a set piece on him as well, and I'm sure that was playing on your mind as well. So, yeah, that's my defensive line. Shall I go to my midfield next?
This is where it all starts to change.
Trigger warning.
Yeah.
Trigger warning. Yeah, I've gone for the central midfield partnership of Jim Magilton and Sam Morsy. I'm going for the 4-2-3-1. That is going to upset a lot of people. I love Matt Holland, and this doesn't change anything. It's just a game. It's just for fun. But I kind of think I like the combative box-to-boxness of Morsy with the creative kind of quarterbacking of Jim Magilton. Again, there's a set-piece threat there. And we know how great Morsy is as well on the turn. So I just kind of thought a bit of creativity, a bit of guile, and, a bit of fight. Magilton's got that maybe a little bit as well. But I kind of like that pairing. And, it's kind of a toss-up really between Magilton and Holland. And it's just because I think of Holland and Morsy being quite similar players. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, obviously two very similar players, box to box, kind of sometimes deep lying, can look to break off the play. I guess Magilton would love to play alongside either of them because, as we know, Jim has said in the past, let the runners run, and Morsy and Holland will run all day for you, and Jim can then get on the ball and try dictate play. We know what he can offer. So, yeah, I was surprised when I saw it, to be honest. We'll come on to my one in a minute. I was surprised when I saw it. And on the wings, you've gone for Wes Burns, slightly more advanced than me, and then Martin Roycer. That's a bit of a surprise to me at left midfield.
Yeah, so Burns and Clark, I just love that partnership from last season, and injuries aside, it's going to be effective for us. Again, we talked about the Williams versus Clark debate, but I just like that dynamism. I agree with you as well on the assessment at the right hand side under Burley as well. It's probably a troublesome area, so I'm quite happy to go with McKenna's personnel for that. I just love Martin Roycer. It's an emotional choice rather than kind of he's a fit. Obviously, you've got Leif Davis, who's going to provide the enterprise and the energy down that left-hand side anyway. We know Royce is going to cut in, but it's just for these magic moments, even ignoring, he probably had more of a magic moment, he kind of impact the season after 99-2000, but folk forget last minute winner against Fulham, really important goal, a marginal game that kind of nudged us towards the playoffs and up towards the kind of top two, albeit we just fell short, but it's just those moments of brilliance. And yeah, he's the kind of player in that team that can create something from nothing, similar to Jim, but even more so. But Leif Davis is going to have to do the bulk of the running down that left-hand side. That's for sure. Do you ever look at yours while everyone is picking themselves off the floor that I've not picked, Matt Holland? Here we go.
I've gone slightly more, predictable. So I've gone for a three-man central midfield. Morsy sitting slightly deeper with Magilton one side and Holland the other. So Holland's my kind of box-to-box. We know how good he was that season, arriving late in the box. I think he got 15 goals that season, didn't he? Which is, it sounds, we just kind of took that for granted back in the day. But 15 goals from a central midfield player is a hell of a respectable talent. It doesn't really happen that much now. Morsy will sit there and do what Morsy does. He will break up the play like in your side. Then he'll look to lay it off to either Matt Holland or Magilton. Magilton, I need that for his kind of through balls and his guile and his kind of, his ability to pick those key passes. So I think I've gone, in my side, I've gone for the creativity really to come from basically Magilton and then the two guys in the wing back positions. I'm going to be relying on lots of kind of crosses and cutbacks from Burns and Davis into my front two, and then Magilton pulling off an amazing through ball every now and again. And I've got the industry, I would say, of Morsy and Holland to just kind of run all game and look to their fitness levels were always absolutely superb. The one time Holland was going to miss a game, he went to Brightlingsea, stuck his leg in the healing waters and made a miraculous recurrence. So I need them to do the running for me, Magilton to do the classy stuff. And yeah, I guess mine will trigger people less than yours because mine's probably the predictable, safe option, I would say.
The only so I quite agree in terms of the names. I just wonder whether you're doing Morsy a disservice by playing him deeper.
Maybe, but but in our side, I'd say Luongo's more the box to box. Morsy will pick up the ball and drive, but Luongo tends to be the one who gets on the end of things more in the box, I would say. So is he not playing that deeper role already at the moment? You just got to curve that a little bit.
Don't they? Because Luongo drops left, doesn't he, when Davis bombs on, I just wonder whether neither of them are bad players. It's the debate about what do you want them to do, and I wonder whether you limit Morsey's impact by making him be the sitter. Obviously, him and Holland would rotate. That sounds like this is actually going to happen, doesn't it? But in theory, they'd rotate, wouldn't they? I think you wouldn't have it would be maybe a bit fluid. But I wonder whether Luongo is maybe the better pick because, yeah, I think he's more the out and out defensive midfielder than Morsey. Perhaps I don't know. Is your team?
Potentially, yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I say, I had to get Matt Holland in there. I had to get Jim Magilton in there. And obviously with the 6 and 6 rule, I had to get one of the current staff in there. And Morsey, to be fair, was always going to make it. My Holland was always in for me. It was a case of if I did a different formation, I was going to do Morsey or Magilton. And I just thought, just go for the 3 at the back system and get all 3 in there. And yeah, maybe doing them a bit of a disservice. But if Holland can drop deep sometimes and Morsey can pick up the ball and break the lines. To be fair, I don't think Magilton would really let them do that, would he? Let's be honest. He's incredibly vocal. I'd imagine he'll be shouting a lot of them both to simply give him the ball and let him dictate the play, to be honest.
Who's your captain?
Matt Holland.
Okay, fine.
Obviously.
You're going to tell Morsey he's not the captain, are you?
No, I'm not. I'll get Tony Mowbray to do it because you can tell him.
There's a lot of leaders in your team, to be fair, though, isn't there?
That's what we always say about the 99-2000 side. You know, it was a side full of leadership, and that's what you need in those horrible moments, like being 2-0 down on the Reebok, minus Mowbray, minus Johnson. You know, you need those big game players and those kind of leaders to take the game by the scruff of the neck and get you over the line. And yeah, with Morsey, Holland, Mowbray, Venus, I guess you could say I have got a fair few leaders in there. And I think it'd be a very vocal side. It certainly wouldn't be a quiet side, I don't think.
Your dressing room's going to be harmonious, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. Should we have a look at your attack then? Finish off your front two?
Yeah, so
here we go.
No surprises. Obviously, I'm always going to put David Johnson in there, hence why I went for the 3-5-2, because I don't think he would work as the lone striker, despite him being pacey and probably able to press. I don't think he's physical enough. And then because of the 6 and 6 rule, I had to put in a current player. I debated George Hurst in almost the Scowcroft kind of role to hold the ball up for Jono and kind of, do the hard work and Johnson King at the end of things. But Connor Chaplin, I thought, 26 goals last season, 4 or 5 so far this season already, hit the ground running. And yeah, I just thought that's a very sort of goal heavy front two. Not the biggest, but Chaplin always seems to get on the end of things from a set piece in a corner, and Johnson was really good in the air, considering how I think he was 5'6", 5'7", so not the tallest of front lines, but I think they would certainly deliver goals in a real world. If we don't abide by the 6 and 6 rule, I have Scowcroft in there for Chaplin. I have Scowcroft and Jono up front as the good old fashioned late 90s big man, short, pacey striker playing on the last shoulder kind of combination.
Yeah, I think probably if it were me, I might go first. But you're quite right. The Chaplin's goals is just a massive threat, isn't it? And scores all types of goals as well. And yeah, and surprises.
I've got Davis in at left wing back. I've got to have Chaplin in to make those runs. Davis down the wing, pull the ball back. Chaplin sits in space and bangs the ball home. Yeah,
that combination equals goals. And yeah, have you had many opportunities to have a little bit of Johnson ode? We know that when it comes to Johnson versus Stewart, where your loyalties land. But do you want to talk to us about how great David Johnson was? Maybe how unsung he was in that 99-2000 team, and probably more so the seasons before as well. Before Stewart arrived and Roycer arrived on the scene.
Well, he was probably the closest thing to a sure thing for a 15 to 20 goal striker in the late 90s at that time. We signed him from Bury, 9 goals I think he had when he joined us, and he finishes on 30, he gets 20 odd, 22, 21 odd for us. And I think he still finishes Bury's top scorer that season. And he was just a machine at this level. The following year, he gets 15, has an injury, has a cartilage operation halfway through, gets injured at Barnsley, I think it is, at home, has a cartilage operation and goes on a bit of a dry spell. And he ends the season not in great form. And in that 99-2000 season, he started the season on fire. We remember the goal against Forest, that dipping volley from the edge of the area, and he follows it up next week with 2 against Swindon. And then he's just, remarkably he just delivers the Bolton goal on halfway where he kind of wins the ball and runs at them. The Barnsley a few weeks later, the 6-1, which is a similar kind of goal. Great in the air. Him and Wilness, the Man City header, he gets a great connection on it. Lee, who was the keeper, Nicky Weaver, got a hand on it, but he couldn't stop the ball from going in. And yeah, he would score in spells. He'd score 6 in 5 and then not score for the next 5 in a row. row. But when he kind of, he would always deliver for you in the moments. I think that I love the commentary, the Charlton away game, the 3-1 at the end of the season, and they're waxing lyrical saying David Johnson doing what David Johnson does. Of all the first division strikers, the one you would want to see in that position is David Johnson. His game was about pace and power. Maybe not the best finisher at times, but yeah, for me, he was absolutely superb. We'll discuss obviously your choice in a minute, but for me, he was a no-brainer. 22 goals that season. He got one in the cup as well, so 23. And yeah, superb player who went scoring throughout the season when maybe some others dropped off every now and again.
Yep, fair call. And definitely a kind of an ITFC legend of that era as well. So so I'm going to upset Seb by showing my attack. Don't forget, I'm doing the 4-2-3-1. So I've missed a midfielder or an attacking midfielder. So we'll see who that is in a second. But I am going for the big man, small man partnership. But I'm going Marcus Stewart, kind of for the emotional reasons. Again, it's an emotional pick like Royce. And I know that Marcus Stewart didn't really contribute a huge amount in the 99-2000. Obviously, the goal against Barnsley, the goal against Huddersfield, and eventually turned up and became an absolute hero with the goals and a Bolton and a header at Wembley. But just kind of on paper, that intelligence, he's going to sit in and drop off, isn't he, and find the spaces. But alongside him, we talked about Johnson being an unsung hero of that 99-2000 team. That striking lineup with Scowcroft, Naylor and Johnson that started that 99-2000 season was really big, and we only realised how important Scowcroft was to the way we played when he moved to Leicester a couple of years later. And really intelligent player, often quite maligned by our fan base who didn't really understand what he was there to do. It's really easy to see a big forward and think, right, well, you're going to score lots of headers and, your job is about scoring goals. It was much more important, actually, that he brought other people into the game. He held the ball up so well and found spaces as well. And yeah, I don't think there's the out-and-out strikiness in my lineup with Stewart and Scowcroft, but there's that attacking guile through Roycer, and that Burns is going to get in there as well. Majorca and Morsey will score a few. So, yeah, I think probably Johnson may be a better pick, perhaps, than Stewart, perhaps, for that reason. But I'm pretty happy with that team, and I can't not pick Marcus Stewart, and it's just an emotional thing at this point.
It's such a shame they never clicked, wasn't it? I remember signing Stewart and I thought, right, we've now got two of the best strikers probably ever seen at this level. And it was such a shame him and Johnson couldn't get it going. You just mentioned there Stewart's best moments come in the playoff semi away at Bolton and the game at Wembley, and David Johnson isn't on the pitch for any of those events. It's just the way it went. And we all know what happened in the Premier League the season after. So it was such a shame, I guess, two left-footed players, and they were kind of making similar runs. Scully was, like you say, a real unsung hero. He got 15 goals. He was the player of the season that year, wasn't he? Yep. We've just spoken about big game moments from Stewart and Johnson with 22 goals, but Scully got the player of the year, and he was superb. And we kind of went into that year expecting it to be Johnson and Stewart because that's what Johnson and Scowcroft, because that's what it had been for the previous, the year before and half the season before that, with Alex Matthew dipping in and out here and there. But it was Naylor and Johnson up front, and Scully slightly more withdrawn, and he took to it like an absolute duck to water, didn't he? He was brilliant in the role, and he could, like you say, hold the ball up, bring others into play. That lovely long diagonal from Richard Wright or Mark Venus's left foot onto the head of Scully for him to flick the ball onto the faster players. And yeah, what a side that was. And like you say, maybe we didn't truly appreciate Scowcroft until he left us and moved to Leicester. He was an absolute brilliant player that year. He got player of the year the season before as well. I think he got 13, 14 goals that year, 15 in the promotion year. So yeah. In an ideal world without the 6 and 6 rule, I'd have him in mind as well.
And just as effective in the Premier League the season after as well, wasn't he? And
it's him and Stewart, isn't it? It's him and Stewart. Alan Armstrong comes in a little bit, Naylor comes in a little bit, but the bulk of the kind of holding up play and creating space for Stewart to go and get 19 league goals is because Scowcroft's doing all that work. After Johnson got the first bite of the cherry, I must put that in.
Yeah, well, yeah, indeed. Any players, we've mentioned Clapham, any players that are on the periphery that you wanted to call out? I mean, Richard Naylor, we've mentioned there. I guess Push could do a job at centre-back, but that wasn't maybe until Joe Royal appears a few years later on. But Naylor, again, in terms of unsung, obviously not going to get the same number of goals as Jono, but maybe more industrious and is that kind of disruptor that sometimes you need. Was he anywhere in your thinking?
No, Clapham was the one for me that I thought was harsh to leave out. I mean, if we're talking about a modern day side, then surely the lead striker isn't Johnson or Stewart. It's Scowcroft or Naylor, isn't it? It's someone who's going to kind of, I guess, maybe more so Naylor. He's going to tire out defenders. He's going to be physical. He's going to run everything, chase after everything all game, and then at some point on 60 minutes, you're going to replace him after he's done the job of knackering out the defence. So maybe, he logically in a modern day kind of Kieran McKenna formation, Naylor is the one that would be more involved at the top of the pyramid, creating space and doing the dirty work for the others. But for me, Clapham was the really difficult one to kind of leave out. You know, signed him on loan from Spurs, make the deal permanent. He had a great season that year, and I always remember. Do you remember the run for Stewart's equaliser away at the Reebok? It's Clapham who, baking hot day, probably had played 43, 41 games so far that season, and he's still going the lung-busting run to come forward and pick out Royce. Yeah, I love Jamie Clapham. Should have got an England call-up. Travesty that he didn't the following season. He was a real tough one to leave out.
Just wasn't sexy enough for Sven-Göran Eriksson.
Yeah, he's dependable. He's, I don't know how many assists he got that season, but I guess he's not necessarily maybe one of the headline grabbers. But you knew every week he'd be a 7, 8 out of 10.
No Jonas Axeldal, his name came up on Saturday at the Blue Monday Live event.
No, nor Neil Midgley. I guess they were the reserve strikers back in the day. Shows how reliant we were, wasn't it?
Midgley got a goal though, didn't he?
Naylor. He did. West Brom at home, yeah, he got the goal and then was never seen again. Axeldal, I think I remember hitting the bar or hitting the post at someone away, but they never got going, did they? It was no surprise we went out in the January window and brought in a bit of quality. How about you? Anyone from the modern era you were kind of debating leaving out, or anyone from the 1990,000 you wanted to try and get in there?
Yeah, I mean, I will be unable to sleep for a week having not picked Matt Holland, and I'm sure people in the comments will be feeling likewise about and reminding me of that. I think I'm generally quite happy with the balance of the team. I think I am a bit worried about the lack of pace with Royce and Stewart on the left-hand side, but Leif Davis gives you that anyway.
Royce wasn't slow though, was he?
No,
in his latter years, maybe. But 99, 2000, 2001, he's kind of, yeah. I don't remember at Wembley, kind of, was on the halfway line and was no slouch.
I mean, probably the big name that neither of us have got is Nathan Broadhead, right?
Yeah. Again, I couldn't really make him work given my formation. I guess in mine, he'd have to play in the Connor Chaplin role up front. And yeah, again, an excellent technical player, has stepped up to the championship effortlessly like most of them have. But I went for Chaplin given the more guaranteed kind of goals. I need goals and pace and power and, in my front two. Was he close to making yours, was he?
Yeah. And I think the 6 and 6
in the Royce role, presumably.
Yeah, in the Royce role. So the 6 and 6 rule is really important, folks. Don't forget that when you're leaving your comments, because we're going to talk about the manager next. But yeah, I just had to pick a 99-2000 player, and Royce in that position to me I quite like. They're quite similar players, maybe go about things in a different way, but you get the same kind of creativity. You get them filling in gaps every now and then, and you obviously get goals as well. So very similar, but yeah, Broadhead, as you say, I think probably more of a fit in my team, but it was just the rules stopped me from being able to pick him.
I'll tell you what, with Royce, Magilton, Davis and Venus in your side, you've got a hell of a corner kick taker, haven't you?
Yeah.
They'll be fighting over that one.
Trouble is, I haven't got Chaplin running on the end of it to slam it home from the penalty spot.
You have got Scoey and his whatever he was.
Stuart might do that job pretty well, actually.
Yeah, true,
that set piece routine. Well, talking of set piece routines, we have to pick. I guess we pick a manager, but we get the backroom staff as well, probably.
Can I just ask? Sorry, before we move on, who was your captain?
My captain's Morsey.
Okay, right.
Let Magilton play. Let him play. Let him cook. Okay. Let him cook, Seb.
Do you think he'd accept that?
What I'll do is I'll let them figure it out between themselves.
Okay, in that case, there's only one winner, I would suggest.
Fly on the wall would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah. I thought I just think I really appreciate Morsey's leadership in this current team, and he's such a focal point on the pitch for us and such a leader as well. There's a lot of stuff that people don't see. There was a moment in the second half where he comes back and is instructing and giving orders to Hladky, I think it was on Saturday against who did we? I've forgotten who we played already on Blooming Saturday.
4-2.
So much has happened since then. Preston, yeah, there was an awkward moment, particularly when Preston were on top, and Morsey just comes back and is basically is holding court with the whole defence, but giving instructions to Hladky. And I think a lot of us don't see that kind of stuff. They see the lead by example stuff and getting stuck in and roaming forward, etc., bringing everyone up the pitch, but the 7-8 out of 10 every week is very similar to Magilton, but I just think Magilton is much more focused on what he's trying to do and what he can do for the team, maybe less so Morsey, who's thinking about the team, and that would play into my thinking a little bit.
Makes sense. And I guess at full time, you get a Harry Clark fist pump towards the North Stand. I was Matt thinking, Holland politely applauding all four stands,
which is fine. Different end of games, for
different celebrations for different needs. Yeah, there you go.
I was thinking, what would I want against Norwich? And I want Harry Clark launching into a tackle along with Magilton, along with Morsey. So yeah, shall we talk about the coach then? Because we both, if people haven't figured it out by themselves already, we have both gone for the same manager.
And this is based on 99-2000, not the Premier League manager of the season.
Well,
2001, everyone.
How quickly, at what point did you decide to go for McKenna? Was it before or after you named the rest of the team?
It was before. It was always going to be McKenna for me personally. I think when you consider where he's come from, this is his second and a half full season in kind of full-time management, and the way he has transformed things. I know Burley did a very similar job. Obviously, we get relegated under him. He takes over and can't save us. Then he kind of rebuilds the whole club, this superb playing style. But that was evolution over 4 or 5 seasons, wasn't it? The defeats to you could argue back in the late 90s, not bottle jobs, but we did suffer those defeats. Sheffield United, Bolton, Charlton. You could even argue on the last day of the season we failed to beat somebody and didn't get. Was it Millwall? Couldn't get in '96. So yeah, maybe you'd argue that team took a lot longer to kind of evolve and build, whereas McKenna has hit the ground running. He's playing football that I've not seen and enjoyed as much since those George Burley days. And yeah, for me, given his age, the speed at which he's transformed everything, and the incredible football we play with incredible tactical changes like dropping Cameron Burgess for George Edmondson because of a Hull player might show somebody onto his left foot. His level of insight is next level, and yeah, for me it was him right from the get-go personally. What about you?
Yeah, for all of that, exactly right, and a little bit, and a little bit more as well. We were the formative years of watching Town for us was the Burley era, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it didn't feel like what we're watching right now. I know that's off the back of a League One promotion, but I don't remember. Obviously, this was pre-social media and pre-podcasts, but the chat about Burley was clearly not the same as there is for McKenna now, which is his ceiling is exponentially higher, isn't it? In theory, McKenna could go on and get the top jobs in the game, and that was playing on my mind. But also the fact that McKenna, I think, Sheepshanks off the field was the figurehead, was the focal point for the community to rally around that team. McKenna has done a bit of both. Clearly, we've got Mark Ashton and the foundation doing great work in the community, but the love for McKenna, I think, is really tangible off the field as much as it is on it as well. And I think that's a key factor. But I just, for all the reasons you say, the tactical acumen, the flexibility, the pragmatism, the developing and learning on the job, I think maybe he's more flexible than Burley. Burley obviously had different ways to play. We kind of debated on the podcast before that the thought was Burley was very long ball, but actually, was very tiki-taka, kind of short passing. But Burley actually went quite direct at times and, was able to mix it up. But you kind of feel like McKenna has got a game plan for every single game. Yeah, and I don't think maybe Burley had that, if I'm being harsh.
No, I think you're being spot on there. I remember 0-0s at home to Blackburn, at home to Tranmere in the 99-2000 season. There was a bit of a sense, like you said, before social media, but there was a bit of a sense that did Burley really have that kind of plan B? Whereas McKenna, I think, if he gets found out once, then he'll know to react next time, and it's very rare you'll see a kind of repeat of the same issue in games he's taken over.
Yeah, and you'd imagine that in my team, he's going to bring out the best in Royster, isn't he, for example, as well, get that extra level. But we need to pay tribute to George Burley. We obviously did an interview with Burley a few years back. Craig did that. You can check that out. In fact, I'm trying to figure out, in terms of the 99-2000 team, how many people we've interviewed. So do check out our archive of interviews on YouTube in particular. But Burley was fantastic, wasn't he? And
oh yeah,
the expectations when he came in, obviously that aging team that got relegated, got tanked by Man United 9-0. And then you fast forward a few years, he's completely evolved it, brought in, probably, is it fair to say, better at bringing in the kids maybe than McKenna, maybe out of choice because of the budgets, perhaps.
Yeah,
I think that works in Burley's favour, perhaps. But that maybe the difference as well. We're not giving Burley the credit because it was a slow burn, and eventually 99, 2000 it happened. But actually, the 2001 season, did it have feelings of what we're going through right now? Maybe,
yeah, that kind of momentum that carried us through, and that sense of disbelief every single moment. Well, back in the day when you were opening up the newspaper and watching Match of the Day and teletext channel 303, whatever it was on teletext, to try and catch up with the league table and stuff. Yeah, I guess I wonder, it'd be interesting if in this day and age, if Burley would have got the chance to have 4 stabs at a playoff campaign. We live in a world now of managerial firings and hirings at very quick fire. Some teams will have multiple managers within a season. I'm not sure in 2022 George Burley would get the chance to build the squad over the 5-year period that he did, and eventually, I think after Charlton, maybe certainly the first maybe the first Bolton one, I think maybe the club in the modern era looks to go down a different path, and he never gets the chance to kind of keep building that squad. And I mean, 2001 was absolutely incredible, wasn't it? To think we still went into the final day away at Derby with a chance of Champions League football was just mental.
Yep, I was there. So we'll have a look at, Joe has given us a team as well, but Seb, do you want to just give, for those who are listening on the podcast, do you want to name your team in full?
Yeah, so Richard Wright in goal, a back 3 of Luke Wolfenden, Tony Mowbray in the middle, Mark Venus on the left, wing backs Leif Davis and Wes Burns. My central midfield 3 are Sammy Morsey slightly deeper, Jim Magilton one side, Matt Holland the other side, and up front Connor Chaplin and the goal machine that is David Johnson.
Lovely stuff. And my team, coached by Kieran McKenna, has Richard Wright in goal, a back 2 of Mark Venus and Luke Wolfenden. They are flanked by Leif Davis on the left and Harry Clark on the right, with Jim Magilton and Sam Morsey in the engine room. Martin Royce are out on the left cutting in, and Wes Burns on the right cutting in. And Marcus Stewart leads the line with James Scowcroft just in behind the small guy, big guy partnership there. So give us your thoughts there. I'm just going to pause and throw Joe's team up on the screen, and we'll have we'll critique Joe's. It's very similar to yours, actually, Seb. Gone for the same formation as you, same midfield config.
Yeah.
He's
same
got
fullbacks, wing backs.
Yeah, he's got McGreal in.
Okay.
Instead of Mowbray. I can kind of understand that, maybe.
Yeah, I can.
Chaplin Scowcroft up front, though, is a pretty exciting front too, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. In the same kind of little man, big man role that we had with Johnson and Scowcroft, you're going to be relying there on Scowcroft holding the ball up and Chaplin just doing what he does, buzzing around, being a pest and getting on the end of things. So that's a very, very similar side to mine, isn't it? Who was his manager?
McKenna.
Okay, yeah. So
very, what very it suggests is I'm in the wrong and you guys are in the right.
At Ipswich on Twitter,
yeah,
make sure all of your views.
Well,
he dropped Matt Holland. Everyone, remember that.
Oh yeah, Matt Holland. Yeah, as I said, I feel bad. I feel so bad, but he'd be the first sub on the pitch at 60 minutes, if that's any consolation, when Jim's legs are done. So let us know what you think in the comments. Please stick with the 6-6 rule. It's one rule. That's all it is, because otherwise you can critique and slag us off as much as you want, and it doesn't really make much sense. So it's a bit of fun.
And try and pick the same formations that we have as well to make it consistent if you can.
But do let us know what you think about, particularly about the personal as well. Any thoughts of the that we've missed on the players? Your thoughts on that 99 versus 23-24 team, and where they rank and how they compare. Just give us your thoughts in the comments as well, but give us your team as well. Give us your selection down there as well, at Ipswich, at Brown SO8, or join us on Telegram as well. I'm sure the guys at Telegram were pre-warned that we were going to do this pod, Seb, and have already started going in full nerd mode. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of debate over there. So do join us on Telegram as well. Worth noting, we do have a flagship show on Sunday as well. 8 p.m. We'll do a bit of a review of the season to date. So do join us back at the usual time on Sunday. And then the pre-match show. Are we going Thursday next week, Seb, ahead of Rotherham?
Yep, I'm off to Rotherham. So we'll do Thursday night live and then Rotherham for me on the Friday night. Get back
Brilliant
into it,
stuff.
thankfully. On the international breaks, rubbish.
Yeah, it is a bit rubbish. Though at the time of recording, Wales are playing, and I think both Nathan Broadhand and Wes Burns are in the team. So we're going to see how they're getting on. But yeah, do give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe as well if you're not a subscriber already. If you're listening on the podcast, give us a 5-star review. Thank you for joining us. We hope we haven't triggered you too much. Give us your thoughts in the chat, and thank you for watching. Seb, I'll let you say goodbye.
He dropped Matt Holland. I didn't, at Ipswich.